Hello everybody. I'm gonna make this a little bigger here. I hope you all have had a great Easter. I hope it's been a great weekend. The weather today was gorgeous, and so that is why I'm doing this video a little bit later than usual. So this mini semester course has flown by, and we are now entering the final 3 weeks of our class. We have two starting tomorrow, because technically as I'm recording this video it is still week 7. We still have the entire of this week coming up, the entire of the week after, and then 5 days of finals week. Our last official day of class is May 10th. So we have starting tomorrow, we have about 19 days left of class, which is going to go by very quickly. So I have a lot of things I want to talk to you all about. We're going to talk about paper 4. We're going to talk about the remaining assignments that will be due this week. And we're also going to talk about some kind of housekeeping things and things left to come. So we've got 3 key points. We're going to talk about the final paper. We're going to talk about what's due this week, week 8 in the class. And then we're going to kind of talk about what is due for the remainder of the class. So it's got 3 big segments. So please, if you've not been watching the lecture videos, and you watch this video and you see somebody that's in this class, make sure to tell them that they need to watch this video too, or make sure that they have. Because I can go on YouTube and see how many people have viewed the videos that I make. It's never as many people that are in the class, so I know some people are not watching the video. Watch this one, because we go over a lot in this video. It's not any terminology. We are officially done with terminology from our textbook. You will still need your textbook, and I'm going to talk about that. But we have a lot to go over in this video. It's not going to be a long video, but there's just a lot of content to cover. And I want to make sure that everyone in this class watches this video so that you are on the same page about our final paper, about our final assignments, everything else. All right? As always, you can email me with questions. You can call me. I'm going to be in my office more now that things are kind of winding down in the high schools. So please feel free to come see me, to call me, to email me. Absolutely. I always check my email to ask questions and get answers. The only times I won't answer a question is if it's something that's mentioned in this video, and then I will refer you to the video. Okay? So without further ado, let's break down and look at what's due this coming week, and then talk about paper 4. So I'm going to minimize this back down and change this to student view so that I see it the same way that you all do. Okay, so if I go to course content, obviously I'm still in week 7, so the things due tonight, make sure you have your discussion forum, your reading response, and your oh wait, no, I'm done here. What am I doing? Make sure your drama exam, MLA review, your paper, and your discussion forum are finished tonight by 11:55 p.m. Okay? These have been open for several weeks, and you do always get a week to work on assignments, so they are due by tonight. So starting this week, we have 3 assignments. The one is the MLA scavenger hunt, our thesis and outline for paper 4, and our week 8 discussion forum. The only assignment due by Friday is the post for the week 8 discussion forum, and I actually didn't time it this way, but surprisingly, the week 8 discussion forum is about Notre Dame. I've planned this discussion forum from January, so it is really, I don't know if ironic is the right term for it, but it's really coincidental that the first big discussion forum we have after the burning of the Cathedral of Notre Dame is about Notre Dame. So some pretty chaotic timing in the zeitgeist out there, so pretty cool. This video is by Lindsay Ellis. She does a lot of different analyses and arguments about pop culture things. She's really fascinated with how Disney and other big companies that make movies kind of organize their media and kind of the focus of it. And in this video, she is going to talk about Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame and kind of the origins of it, how the original is playing into things, and how the cathedral itself plays into the story. So it's a really interesting video. She actually goes to Paris to film a big portion of it. She talks fast, like I do. So the nice thing about the video is it is YouTube, so you can pause it, you can rewatch parts if she talks too fast for you. But when you're done, these were the questions that we have to talk about in your reading response. What her overall point is. Do you agree with her? Do you think that the film is worthy of a remake with all the other remakes going on. Her video is kind of like a research essay, so I want to know why is that, and you can put your answers down here. And then if you have any questions about paper 4, this is going to be the place you can put those questions in the discussion forum right here. And also, if you want to talk about, she says a lot of things in this video, and this video came out about a year ago. She talks about a lot of things that I think are relevant today with our discussion of Notre Dame and the burning of Notre Dame. So if you want to bring that up in the discussion forum, I didn't originally plan for it in the questions, but you are welcome to bring it up because I think she touches on some pretty interesting points, especially as far as renovations go and preservation and historical context and things like that. So that's our discussion forum. The post is due by Friday. Your responses are due by Sunday. The other assignment before we get to paper 4 is the MLA scavenger hunt. I've graded a few of the reviews so far for the MLA assignments, and so far they've been good. So that gives me a lot of confidence, you all. But we have the MLA scavenger hunt that's due. This is why I don't like weekly assignments. Course content is so much clearer. So the scavenger hunt, I'm going to go ahead and open up. It's due by Sunday. Basically, I'm going to download the file and show you all what it looks like. Give it a second. So you'll have 4 different types of sources that I would like for you to go out and find. One is a website or online news magazine article. So this can be any online magazine news article from a website, anything like that. I want you to cite it in MLA format. An interview, I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. A print book, even if it's one that's been scanned online, I want you to cite a book, and I want you to cite a peer-reviewed journal article. Now, peer-reviewed, some of you have asked me before, what does peer-reviewed mean? What that means is that there are different types of journals, and like Entertainment Weekly is a magazine, so it's, not a journal necessarily, but there are lots of journals like the American Heart Association, the American Psychological Association, Communications Quarterly. Those are all journals. Peer-reviewed simply means that in order to be published, you have to go through a process where if I'm trying to publish an article, I would submit it to, let's say, Communications Quarterly. They will send my article to 2 blind reviewers, meaning blind meaning they don't know it's my article, they don't know who the other reviewer is, they just get an article in the mail, and Communications Quarterly is like, hey, read this, let us know if it would fit in our journal or not. So let's say peer reviewer number 1 says, yeah, this article is great, it's a perfect fit, I would publish it, and the other one says the same thing, then I'm in, my article gets published. But if reviewer number 1 says, it's just not quite a good fit, the topic matter just doesn't fit what Communications Quarterly is about, I wouldn't publish it. If they say no, it doesn't matter what the second person says. I won't get published. It's a really hard process to get published in the scholarly journal world. And so because of that, if you cite any journal that's peer-reviewed, I will consider that credible because of the lengthy process it is to even get in that journal to begin with. So that's what peer-reviewed means. It's just a format of journal. It's not anything special. So a journal article, a book, a website, and an interview. I want you to find an example of each of these and cite it for this assignment. So it should be a little bit easier than the MLA review, in all honesty, because most of you have got the MLA review formulas down pat. Now the interview, this one might be tricky, so that's why I put on here, make one up if needed, or can be published or face-to-face. If you looked on Purdue OWL, meaning if you watched the MLA citation presentation, which all of you should have, you will notice at the end of that presentation that I linked back to Purdue OWL online. And on Purdue OWL's site, they show us how to cite an interview. And it is the easiest thing in MLA. This is how I know if you all watch this video or not, because I'm about to show you the answer to number 2 on the scavenger hunt. If you didn't watch this video, you won't know this, and you probably won't put this down. So if you are watching this video, this is what I want you to put for number 2, and this will show me that you have watched this video, okay? So on number 2, where I'm telling you to cite an interview, all you have to do is the author's last name, first name, the words personal interview and the date. So on your scavenger hunt, I want you to put this as your answer for number 2. And if you don't put this answer down, then I will know that you did not watch this video. Okay? I want you to put Smith, John, personal interview, 8 May 2018. And obviously, unlike I did, spell it right. If you put this down for number 2 on the scavenger hunt, I will know that you've watched this video. If you put down something different, I will know that you have not watched this video. Okay? So that's all you have to do for an interview, is just put this down. And that's it. That's all you do for a personal interview. Now, if you cite an interview out of a book or a magazine, then you will format that more like a magazine source. But I just want a straight up interview for this answer. I want to see that you are watching this and paying attention to how this is supposed to be. So that's pretty much it. All right? So we'll come back to this piece of paper here in a little bit. But that is basically how you do the scavenger hunt. And then the discussion forum is the same as we've been doing. Now, the paper 4 thesis and outline, that's the same as what we've done for our other papers. I do want to go over paper 4's guidelines. All right? And this is where we're going to talk about paper 4. So, hope that you're still watching this video because paper 4 is kind of a big thing. Paper 4 is our final paper in this class, and it is the capstone of your English college experience, in my opinion, because out of all of you, I don't think any of you are English majors. If you are, I apologize, I've missed that. But most of you will probably never take another English class after this one. So we're going to go out with a bang. We're going to go out with an awesome project that I want you to be proud of, that I want you to be able to keep in your records, look back on, be like, yeah, I did that. That's what paper 4 is. Now, I have also taught English 121 in the past, and so I understand what the final project for English 121 looks like. This is a very different project. So, if you are planning on recycling your final paper from English 121, that's not going to work for this paper. But I love paper 4 because this paper has so many options, so much creativity you can do, that it's probably the most fun that I have reading a paper all semester is your paper 4. So we're going to go over it, all right, and talk about paper 4 in detail. So I'm going to zoom in up here. All right. So your final project is a culmination of our look of fiction, poetry, and drama. So we are culminating all of the genres together. The first step is for you to decide which genre of literature do you want to focus on. If you liked fiction the best, pick fiction. If you really liked poetry, pick poetry. If you liked drama, pick drama. Pick one of those genres that you would like to continue on with for this final project. Step 2 is to decide on what you want to do with that genre. So there's a lot of options for this paper. You have a ton of different options you can do. These are just some that I've had students do in the past that were successful. Option 1 is to research an analysis of, I'm going to move my, there we go. Research analysis of an author's fiction, poet's poetry, or playwright's screenplay history and how their style and craft has developed over time. So a few years ago, the new remake of It came out, and I had several students wanting to research Stephen King and write about Stephen King, how his fiction has changed over time, how his work has been adapted into film, the reception of that, how Stephen King feels about that, because Stephen King is usually not a fan of adaptations of his work, and he's very vocal about why that is. So I've had students do things like that. This is more of kind of a biography sort of assignment. So if you like researching authors and researching how their work has changed, it does not need to be just a summary of their life. I don't want that. I want to know about their work. I want to know how their, styles of writing has changed over time, how people have received it. I just want to look at a big analysis of that person. So if you like that, this could be a good topic for paper number 4. Another option, this has probably been my favorite out of all of them, to be honest, controversies. I'm a big fan of reading persuasion writing and argumentative writing. And so when I see controversies within genres, I think that's really neat. So I had a student a few years ago write about Harper Lee. She wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, and it was revealed that she was actually had a sequel manuscript in her home. And several publishers found this out, and they were like, Harper Lee, why don't you publish this? You would make so much money. And Harper Lee, who was very elderly at the time and going through a lot of elderly mental conditions, didn't want to publish the novel. And so the student that wrote this paper, she actually focused on, her thesis was it right? Because what ended up happening was the publishers got a hold of the manuscript and they did release it. And sadly, Harper Lee passed away a few years ago, shortly after that. And so my student's thesis was Harper Lee exploited in order for publishers to make a quick buck? It was a really fascinating paper. Go Set a Watchman is the sequel to Kill a Mockingbird that they published. And because of that student's paper, I have not read the sequel, and I will not read it because I don't want to give my money to these publishers who clearly, I believe, and I agree with the student, exploited this elderly woman and took advantage of her. And friends of mine that have read it said it completely ruins To Kill a Mockingbird if you read it. It changes the whole perspective. It makes Atticus not look like a good character anymore. They said it's awful. And the student's argument was that, yeah, Harper Lee didn't want to publish this book because she realized she didn't want to change those characters. She wanted them to just be kind of immortalized in To Kill a Mockingbird. So her paper was fantastic. I loved the controversy. I loved the discussion of it. It made me think about things outside of just literature, about exploitation and elderly writers. It was fabulous. But I've had other students focus on controversies as well. I had a student write about Rocky Horror and the remake. A lot of the live action remakes of Grease, of Rocky Horror, of A Christmas Story. I've had students write about those because they're typically musicals or plays that have a really soft spot in people's hearts. And the live action remakes, for most of the students, they would say that they're just quick cash grab-ins. And I agree with that. And so I thought their papers that focused on that were really good. Banned books is an interesting topic for controversies. Writers, Sappho, we talked about Sappho with poetry. That would be a controversy worth talking about. I mean, you can find lots of controversies within literature that you could write about if you choose. And you'll find a ton of information. That's kind of the big thing. All of these topics should be things that you find lots of information about. All right. So the next one is a research analysis of a drama or fiction and how it's adapted into another genre such as film. So I had a student write about Batman versus Superman. They looked at the original comics and talked about the adaptation. The Walking Dead would be a great choice because I read the Walking Dead comics. I can't watch the show now because the comics have deviated so much from the source material. But I'd love to see a paper about it. That'd be great. If you choose this option, it's talking about adapting a poem or a book or a play into a film or another medium. What I don't want is for it to be just a book report. Book reports are my least favorite genres of literature. And why that is because they ruin everything. I'll tell you all right now, I can't read the last two Hunger Game books. I read the first Hunger Games and I watched the movie and I thought they were great. And then I've had probably about 30 papers written from students about the Hunger Games. I don't need to read the books now or watch the movies because so many of those papers have just been telling me what the plot is. And I feel like it's kind of spoiled because I can't watch and read those things and go into them with a fresh eye because I've had all those plot details told to me through papers. So your analyses, if you choose to do this third option, it should not be a book report. I don't want to just know the plot. You can give me the plot, and if you want to keep certain plot elements, spoiler free, you can definitely do that. But I also want to know what changes from one genre to the next. When you adapt it from a play to a film, and we've looked at John Malkovich and his words talking about film adaptation and theater adaptation, what changes? Is it better or worse? Why are these changes made? And then you can even look at the source material and the adaptation and see, critical receptions. The nice thing about the internet is people can write reviews on anything, so you can use reviews as sources to back yourself up. I mean, you've got a lot of information you can go off of, but I would like to see you explore multiple elements of that genre and not just plot as the one if you choose this option. But it's a pretty popular option because we all have opinions. And I read a really good one where a girl she took one of the Harry Potter books and talked about it being adapted into film. And the example was Prisoner of Azkaban. And the film version is quite different than the book. And so she talked about the critical reception, what that did for the other films. I mean, she tied it all in some really cool ways. And it was a good paper. An extended analysis of a specific poem, piece of fiction, or play. So the only thing is it can't be something you've done before. So if you just got through writing about Hamlet, you can't choose Hamlet for this final paper. But if you liked breaking down Hamlet or breaking down Antigone and you're like, hey, that was fun, I'd like to do it with another play, you can do it for this final paper. It's just going to be longer. If you want to break down a certain piece of fiction or analyze it, or a play or a poem, or an anthology of poems, you can definitely do that. I had someone break down Robert Frost's, it was an anthology of Robert Frost's greatest works, and they talked about how Frost's writing changed, what the themes were. They went through all the elements of poetry and kind of explored how Frost's poems either fit that term or didn't fit it. And it was a good paper. So you can do an extended analysis over a piece of literature. It just can't be something you've already done in the class. And then out of the box ideas, I am always open to. So if you really liked doing creative writing in the first paper, you can do creative writing for this paper too. The only thing that I ask is, the only thing that I want everyone to do the same amount of work for their paper. And some students that are really creative writing oriented, they're like, oh, well, that'll be easy. I'll just make up a story. That'll be super easy. One, please keep in mind I am going to look for the elements of fiction in your work, like I did for paper 1 if you did that. But also, you are going to have to do some citations off to the side, like in-text citations and MLA works cited page citations off to the side to supplement what other people would be doing in their research papers. So you're still going to end up having the same amount of content and do the same amount of work. It's just, if you like creative writing, this is your chance to kind of do an extended piece. It cannot be an extension of paper 1. It has to be something new. So just keep that in mind. But if you do like creative writing, I want to give you that option for this final paper. And as you can see here, I will work with you to make sure that every part gets fulfilled so you're doing the same amount of work as your peers. Okay? So you have a lot of options. Tons of options. The only sources, or rather the only topics that won't work for this paper are topics that don't involve literature. So I had a student who did not watch this video in semesters past, and she sent me her thesis and outline, and her thesis was, smoking's bad. That won't work for this paper, because that thesis had nothing to do with literature. So I got in contact with her, and I said, we need to rework this and make this work, because as it is right now, you're not going to pass this paper with that topic. So we had to connect it somehow to literature or a genre of literature. So what we ended up doing was that she still wanted to use the information from all those sources about smoking that she had found, but instead we kind of gave it a twist. So she did a paper on how has characters that smoke in literature, how has their portrayal changed over time? So her kind of start point was in the 70s and 80s, where lots of characters smoked, and they were often main characters, or they were just random casual characters. There wasn't a big deal about it. But as we learn more about smoking and how it's bad for our health and things like that, nowadays, most of the characters that smoke are either villains, or they're not the protagonist. They're not good guys, or they're portrayed in a negative light, or having a negative emotion attached to them. So her paper was all about how that trend had changed, and what sparked that, and what was continuing it, and how it was developing over time. It ended up being a really good paper, but she took a topic that didn't work and made it work. So you can definitely do that, and that's why I want to see your theses this week, to make sure that your topics are going to work for this paper. All right, so now, while you're thinking of all these options that you can do for this paper, we're going to talk about the guidelines. And every time, I've taught this short semester class for years, and every time we get to this point, this is where students are like, I can't do this. Yes, you can. And we're going to talk about it. So, no matter what topic or prompt you do, this paper is 8 pages long. I don't know how your papers were in high school. When I was in high school, my senior paper was 10 pages at least. And we wrote 5 to 7 page papers all the time in high school. So I don't know if your high school English program is different, if it wasn't like that. Maybe I had a good English program, I don't know. But that's how we were. So I was, honestly, when I was here at SIC, this was the length of my English 122 paper, and then when I went on, it just got bigger and bigger. But I'm an English major, so that's to be expected. But you can do this, and I know it because I've taught this class many years, and I've had hundreds of students do this. So I know you can. If you're like doubting yourself right now, don't. I'm going to show you how we're going to break it down. We're going to make it work. You're going to be able to do this. And choosing these big, dense, rich topics is going to give you so much information to comb through and organize that it's going to be doable. So here's how. You will have a detailed introduction paragraph where you explain your thesis, your goal of the paper, your points you plan to address. You are going to have a section after the introduction where you explain either the controversy, you explain the process of adapting the book, or you offer background information on your topic. Like just before you dive in, give us some background info. You're going to talk about at least 3 terms or concepts from the chapters of the genre. So if you choose something related to fiction, you're going to pick 3 of our fiction elements, whether it's plot, whether it's style, whether it's symbolism, whether it's littler terms like protagonist and antagonist. 3 terminology terms from our units you're going to talk about. And then you do have to have 4 sources for this paper. So, as I talked in the MLA citation video, Wikipedia and wikis do not count. If you use any source like this in your paper, I will deduct massive points. Because we've talked about this, they are not credible and they're not sources you need to use. Okay? So, don't use them. And that's how I'll know you'll watch this video too, because I'm saying please don't use them. Alright? Your analysis is your thoughts, your opinions. It's not just a summary, not just a book report. If you're doing an outside of the box topic, talk with me. And then you must have a in-text citations and works cited page in this final paper. So before I get to the due dates, what I want to show you on breaking it down is it is doable. So you have 8 pages, right? So you can have a title page if you want to, but it does not count as part of the 8 pages. It's more of a formatting thing. If you want to include it, you can. It looks nice. It's not necessary. So page 1 needs to be your introduction and the start of your background information. Okay? Page 2 needs to finish your background information and start talking about your first point. Page 3 needs to finish your first point and go into your second point. Page 4, finish your second point and go into your third point. Okay. Page 5, finish third point and go into conclusion. Page 6, finish conclusion. Now that seems like only 6 pages, right? And then but here's the thing. You've got a double-spaced page here. Like this right here is not double-spaced. Double-spaced is that's double-spaced, so it instantly is going to make your paper twice as long. This is a typical paper, right? But let's say page 3, you're not done with your first point. You're just finishing your first point. Let's say page 4, you start your second point. And then page 5, you're finishing I keep saying poing. Alright. Page 6, you finish your third point. Now page 7, let's say you do summarizing reactions or reception of your work or additional information. Usually if you have stuff that doesn't quite fit into those first 3 points, or if you add more points on, let's say you have 4 points, 5 points, whatever, you still have to put some like extra additional information in the end. You'd put that there, and then page 8 would be a conclusion and final summary. So you can do it. It can work. If you do a page per point, or even a page and a half to 2 pages a point, you're going to have this. And you've got 19 days to write it, and that doesn't seem like a long time. I know that you think that it's going to go by fast, I agree, but that's plenty of time. I will tell you all, when I was an English major, my thesis for grad school, I had 60 days to write it, so I had you have basically a third of the time that I had. My thesis was 107 pages long. And I started in January, and by March I had to have the first draft in. By the end of March, early April, the first draft was in. So I have faith in you all. If I can do that, and if my students before you all can do it, you can as well. And if you pick a good, strong topic with lots of information behind it, you will get this. It's going to happen. And I'm excited to see what you all come up with. So you can organize your outline to make it work. And this is even going to talk about terminology. It's talking about your source information, all of that. You're going to have a lot here to work with, okay? So don't be discouraged by the page length, because you can do it. If my students in the past couldn't do it, I wouldn't assign it, but they can. So I know you can too. All right? So back to the guidelines. Your topic and outline statement is due this coming Sunday, the 28th. We are going to peer review this final paper. I love the peer review because it's a time for all of us to get to read each other's work. We get to see all the hard work we've put in. We get to offer feedback. You don't get to revise this final paper. So I want you to get the best grade possible. So our peer review is Friday, May 3rd. Now you may be asking me, well, how long does my paper have to be by this time? And I will tell you all, I hate giving numbers out because I know as soon as I say that number, your brain's like, that's the minimum I gotta do. And I don't like that attitude about it. You should give it your all and try your hardest. So my best advice is get as much as you can in this draft, because this will be the only time I will look at your draft before you turn in the final. I've had some students that turn in like a paragraph for the peer review, and then 2 days before the finals due, they're like, hey, I got my paper finished, want to give it a look? No, that's what the peer review form is for. So I will say this. Aim to get at least half the paper finished by the draft peer review by Friday, May 3rd, at least half. I would encourage you to get more than that, to get as close to 8 pages as possible, so that gives us, as your audience, the most opportunity to give you feedback, okay? But if you get at least 4 pages, I won't count off. I'll give you full credit for the peer review form. If you turn in a page, I won't give you full credit because you should have more of that done. All right? So try to get halfway. If you can get as close to 8 pages as possible, do it so you can get as much feedback as possible, but at least 4 pages, at least halfway. And then your peer review is going to be due by Sunday, May 5th. And then the final draft is due in the Dropbox by Friday, May 10th. Now this date is extremely important, and I'm going to be hammering it home because I've had a student every semester, and it's heartbreaking, but I have a student every semester not make this due date. And I feel awful. But this is the day that all SIC classes, our finals, shut down at 11:55 on Friday, May 10th. That's the night of graduation. Everything stops. So if you do not turn everything in by Friday, May 10th at 11:55 p.m., I cannot give you credit. So if you try to turn your paper in Saturday, it's a 0. If you try to do your final exam Saturday, it's a 0. And I can't go back on that. That is just the way it has to be. So please, last semester it broke my heart because it dropped somebody's grade, a letter grade, and it was not, I felt bad, but then I was like, you have all this time, turn it in. Technology is not an excuse. It's kind of nothing's an excuse. So it is a do or die situation. Just make sure to turn it in by May 10th. Okay? So don't forget that. And I will be hammering it between now and then to make sure. This paper is worth twice what the other papers have been because you're putting in twice the amount of work. So your introduction and conclusion is worth 20 points. The page length and formatting is worth 20. Spelling and grammar is worth 60. The content's worth 60. Your works cited and in-text citations are worth 40. So if you didn't do any works cited and in-text citations in the last paper, I probably told you about it and was like, you need to make sure, because 40 points on this is a letter grade. If you don't get 100, if you get 160, that's a B. So make sure that you turn this in with a works cited page and in-text citations. And that's what the peer review is for, so that you can show me your in-text citations and your works cited page, and I can give you feedback before you turn in the final draft. Okay? So, as always, if you have questions, please let me know. Okay? But for this week, you really just have the thesis and outline. You've got a whole week to think about what you want to do. I would start writing down options to get a good start on it. That way you're not waiting till the last minute to start writing. You can always email me if you're torn between two topics. If you're like, I like this topic, but I like this topic too. Which one should I do? Email me and I'll let you know which one I think is better. The thesis and outline, make sure it's done by Sunday. The scavenger hunt by Sunday. And then our forum by Friday and Sunday. So, as always, if you have questions, please let me know. This is my favorite paper in the class. I love paper 4. It is probably the most creative paper we do. I think that students put in the most work with it, so they end up with the most reward at the end of the class. I enjoy reading these papers so much, and I can't tell you how excited I am to see what you all end up writing about, to see how your paper turns out. As always, ask me questions, but you can do this. Like I said, if semesters before weren't able to, I wouldn't still assign it, but they do. And they always seem to surprise themselves too. They're like, I didn't think I could do that, but it wasn't that bad. So I'm excited to see what you all have to write about. And I will try to get to grading your assignments as soon as possible. Obviously, paper 3 is going to take me all this week. You will get a chance to revise it. I will probably get through everything, though, as soon as I can. Okay, guys? So that you'll have time to know your grade and to keep working on revising and working on things. For the rest of the semester, next week we'll talk about the annotated bibliography and the MLA exam and the peer review. Is going to be by the next weekend. And then finals week is just going to be your exam and submitting the final paper. They will all come online on Sunday, May 5th. So even though this says start May 6th, May 5th on Sunday is when these things will come online. Okay? So get to cracking, get to thinking what you want to write about, and if you have any questions, please let me know. But otherwise, I'm excited to see what you all have to write about. I hope you had a great Easter weekend, and I'm excited to see us move forward as these last few weeks of class close in. All right? Have a great week, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.